Okay, I'll be brief. So I'm joined, of course, by VP of Subways, Sally Librera, and our head of stations, David Santora. Couple updates. Sally and I just had the pleasure of trying out the hand sanitizer dispenser that was newly mounted here, which you might be able to see behind me, which has New York State Clean in it. And you'll also see that we've got a table over here where we're handing out mini bottles of hand sanitizer and masks to anyone who might not have them. That's something that's happening in all of our stations, or many of our stations. We have masks, we have hand sanitizer in all of our stations, and volunteers handing out both in many of our stations. Quick update on ridership from yesterday. For the first time since the pandemic started, yesterday we hit 800,000 riders. That was a 17% increase from 1 week before. Our afternoon peak was up a little bit even more than that, between 19 and 22%. Our biggest jump in ridership was Manhattan, where Manhattan ridership was up 20%. Brooklyn was up 15%. Queens up 16%, the Bronx up 12%. Bus ridership up 13% over the week before. Obviously, overall, ridership still way down compared to pre-pandemic levels, but we've now hit 15% of ridership for the first time. Those are the highlights. Happy to take questions.
See you again. At what point will you be reconsidering the no fare, backdoor only situation on the buses?
On the buses?
Yeah.
So for now, we continue to do rear door boarding and no fares on the buses. I am not going to, Craig Cipriano and his team have been working on a solution that will allow people to board the front door of the bus while also making sure that the operator is as well protected as we can possibly make the operator. I think he's closing in on a solution there, but it's not quite there yet. But that will ultimately we'll have a solution there.
Preparing for a return to a fare-based.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, we have to. There's no question, we have to. So for now, we're still on rear door boarding and having that space between riders and the operator. But there's no question we have to return to front door boarding at some point. Gabe.
Hello. Hey, Sarah. So yesterday on TV, the governor said that you can't disinfect subway cars and clean them the way they're cleaning them and have around-the-clock service. How is this not setting up a conflict between returning to 24/7 service and having clean subway cars, since we've been told 24/7 service is back on the table?
Right. Well, so we get better, we get more effective and more efficient at cleaning all the time. And so our intention is to return to 24/7 service at some point. Well, we are absolutely going to wait through at least through the end of the pandemic, but I think we will get there at some point. But right now it is incredibly helpful for us to have those overnight hours where there is no one in the system, where we're not having to move riders or remove riders, where we can just enter the system and clean efficiently for a couple of hours. Although we are cleaning 24/7, as you know.
Sure. I have heard from people who are still slightly worried that 24/7 service won't come back. Is there anything stopping the MTA from putting out some metrics that say this is when it'll happen? I mean, any way to put people at ease that it's definitely going to come back?
Look, I just think you don't want to, I don't think you want to put out a date and then have to move the goalpost. So we're not going to put out a date for the sake of putting out a date. If you tell me, I think the governor said this at one point, if you tell me when the pandemic will end, I'll tell you all the date that I will start doing all the things I do after the pandemic.
I got a memo that went out over the weekend that said 5 different lines are still running on the essential service, AC, F, L, and I think Rockaways Shuttle. Are those returning to full service? What's the plan on that?
Sally, you want to? Yeah, Sally, you want to?
So we're in the process of ramping those lines up to full service, but they require a lot of train moves line to line. So we were making those moves over the course of the last couple of days and getting everything into place for later this week. We are going to keep a couple of lines at a slightly reduced level of service to accommodate some ongoing work and to make some further car adjustments.
And then on buses, do either of you want to respond to Mayor de Blasio's plan? He put out 20 miles. Sarah, you had requested 60. And then on those lines, or along those lines, Can you give us any update on your push to add transit signal priority? Has the pandemic had any impact on the rollout of those? How many intersections are you at now?
So on buses, look, I think 20 miles is a really good start. We requested 60 for a reason. We think 60 is doable and where we need to get to quickly. But I had a great conversation with Polly Trottenberg yesterday. We're going to work together to roll out the 20 miles as quickly as we can. We'll work closely on getting communities, the business community and communities ready for those. And I'm grateful that they've made it to 20, and we'll try to keep getting even higher. What was your? I did not catch your second question.
On transit signal priority, giving buses priority at stoplights, has the pandemic had any impact on that rollout? And do you guys have a number of intersections that you're currently at in that program?
I do not have a number we're currently at, but we'll follow up and get you one afterwards, and someone will take note of that. I don't have an answer to your question right now. I will tell you I've yet to find anything that the pandemic did not impact in terms of perfect operations, because inevitably people get sick and they're quarantined, and businesses have made decisions about sending people home. And so my guess is there's been some impact, but I believe it's been limited.
There was a rider survey that Tri-State Transportation Campaign just came out with. I wasn't sure if you saw it. And one of the things that people were asking for on it was increased service, which even Tri-State told me is something that federal funding would really be helpful with. Can you give an update on what is going on with federal and other federal bailout, and how important is that for increasing the amount of service that the MTA can run?
Well, so the federal assistance is absolutely necessary and required. We've been clear in our asks, and I think that we're the leading edge of the transit systems that need help, right? So as goes New York, as goes other transit systems, and so the assistance is not optional, in my opinion. So we're going to need it. In terms of whether we require it to increase service, we're already moving up to regular service, but certainly federal assistance will impact everything. It'll impact procurements. It'll impact, our ability to move forward with bigger plans across the board. Right.
Yeah, Sarah, amid all these calls to defund the police, is the MTA reconsidering its plan to hire 500 more officers?
Well, look, everything is on hold at the moment. I mean, we're in a hiring freeze, and so we'll see where we go from here. I think one thing that's really important to point out is that not all policing efforts are the same, and that is not a criticism of anyone in particular. But when an entity like the MTA owns its own police force, right, controls its own police force, that means we control training. It means we control the guidance and instruction and direction that we're giving our police force about how to approach fare evasion, how to approach protecting people on platforms, how to approach assisting riders as they're making their way through the system. So, look, I mean, that I think is important to keep our eye on the ball there. You have the guy that runs every single station in the entire system. You have any questions for David Santora?
What lines are going to, maybe this, you both can answer this, what lines are going to be running on limited service in order for work to get done, you mentioned? Are those the same lines that Clayton was referencing? The 5 lines that are ramping up service?
So we're going to be running the F at a slightly reduced level of service for the next couple of weeks and watching it, and we'll be able to make modifications as needed. And we're also looking at running the current level of service on the L, watching that closely, because we may supplement the L line with additional cars.
Anybody else? Thank you. Thanks very much, everybody.
I'm gonna add one more point, Tim. I'm just gonna add one more point that. I'm sure that I know at least you 3 were probably out in the system yesterday. My guess is all of you were, and I hope that you join me in feeling like it was an important day for New York to feel like it's bouncing back a little bit. There was like a real spring in people's step. There was a bustle about the system. It was obviously a beautiful day, and it was a good day to be out. But I think I was in 6 stations and on 7 trains, and I feel like people felt optimistic and glad to be back, and they were entering the system with like confidence, not hesitancy, and we're continuing to see that today. So it's certainly exciting for our workforce to be back on a regular schedule, to be back at regular service, to be back at doing their job, and not having to feel like they're waiting for sort of the next shoe to drop in terms of what the next day is going to look like. So I'd wrap up with that. Thank you guys. Good to see you.